Welcome to the Christian Fellowship of Art Music Composers Listening Room. Our guest today, or whenever you're listening to this, is Marc Wooldridge. And without further introduction, except to say Marc is a wonderful person and a wonderful musician. So now take over, Marc.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you, Bill, for the invitation and just the great work that you're really doing with this listening page. It's phenomenal, and I'm excited to have a couple of my students also logged in now, and some of them might be coming in later. I've got Caden Burns, who we recently premiered a piece of his with our percussion ensemble. You'll get to hear that later in the program. Jonathan New, we also commissioned a feature piece for kind of like a concerto in a way for hand pan, which is a very new instrument. Some of you got to hear that at our most recent annual conference, but some of you weren't there, so you'll get a chance to learn about that. Um, and and then I'm going to also just share a few pieces that I myself personally wrote and performed on. But part of the program is just going to be me as composer, but also as kind of promoter of new music. Um, Previous to being a member of CFAMC, I was a member of something called Buffalo New Music Ensemble, and a similar program in Iowa when I lived there, composers organization. So I've always liked to belong to composers organizations, even though I'm mostly a performer. But just through the inspiration of folks like you, I also take my hand at composition from time to time. So it's just a wonderful opportunity, and I kind of believe that everybody should be composing. If you're just a musician, that's just part of being a well-rounded musician. So I try to keep active in both realms myself. Also, there's a very strong tradition with percussion, which is my main area. Traditionally, they're just in the early days of when percussion really took off in the 20th century, um, there just was not a lot of music written for percussion. You can't look back to, Baroque, classical, romantic and find, percussion ensemble literature or solo literature. So it was my one of my teachers, Jan Williams, is a famous percussionist that really promoted modern music and still does. But he worked with Elliott Carter on eight timpani pieces that Elliott Carter wrote, for example, and helped him get new techniques and things like that. But one of the things that he shared when he went to Manhattan School of Music is that it was absolutely required everybody had to write a piece. All the percussion students had to write pieces. So I just try to encourage, all my students to compose. But we also have composition majors at IW, like Caden and like Jonathan New. They study with Nick Sokol, and he's also was unable to be here today, but he's a phenomenal teacher that's going to be joining CFAMC soon. So we'll get to learn more about him. But so I part of the program today is we're going to be promoting music by some of our composition students that I've had a chance to work with them, not as a composition teacher, but I do teach music theory. So I teach 4 different semesters of music theory, and in our class that we call Music Theory 3, um, about 2/3 of the semester is just writing. Everybody has to write music in a bunch of different styles, from modal to late 19th century style to atonal, 12 tone, minimalism, chance music, electronic music. So, and I probably left out a few techniques in there, but everybody has to write in all those styles. So in a way, I kind of maybe had an influence on some of even my composition students that are in my theory classes. So I like to kind of feel like I'm making a contribution there, promoting different styles and just helping them also to prepare. Some of them have gone on to graduate school at places like Butler University and others. So I'm excited to see them pursuing composition at the graduate level. All right, well, very good. What I'm going to start off with, some of you may have heard this one before, some of them maybe not, but I'm going to play a marimba duet that I wrote called Diamond Hill. We did perform it at a couple of years ago at a national conference, and but this performance is one that we did here at IW, and I'm going to try, if the technology works right, I'm going to try to put the music side by side with the performance, so we'll see if that works. So hang on a second here. I'm going to try this. Okay, so I'm like sharing my desktop. Great. I'm going to share that. Okay, I think it's working maybe now. Do you guys see some? Oh, crap.
Yes.
Now I just messed it up. How do I close this thing down?
See music and I see percussion.
Okay, you see that now?
Yes.
All right, because it, okay, let me see here. 'Cause I'm not seeing them both now. Let's see.
We see two different kinds of wood.
Okay, all right. Excellent. So if that's what you're seeing, then you're seeing the right thing. And let's just give it a try. So this is a marimba duet. So you'll be able to see, how it's notated. Just a little bit about this piece. In around 2000, I led a group of students, 12 students, to go to Ireland, and we traveled all around Ireland. But just preparing for it, I listened to a lot of Irish music, fiddle music. Martin Hayes is one person I listened to a lot, and was really inspired by. And I always kind of thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice if marimba was like an instrument that was used, in performing Irish music. It's not a traditionally used one, but I tried to write a piece that was sort of in a style of this Martin Hayes piece that I heard, where he was kind of like, sometimes they'll get up on they'll have a box or something like that, and just tap their foot on the box to kind of make a beat, boom, 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 kind of like a drum. And then they play and he was playing like music along with it. So I tried to kind of imitate his style a little bit. And originally this was going to be a solo, and then it's just impossible for one person to do this. So it ended up being a great duo as it turned out. It's published by Honey Rock Music. And I tried to use a lot of the techniques that are used in Irish music, but in the middle part, there's sort of a development section. So it has, like a classical music crossover kind of flavor to it. So just like a lot of other composers have done, taken jazz and then put it in a more classical context, that's kind of what I was trying to do with this. So this is Diamond Hill, and I'm performing this with a student of mine, Cameron Kavanaugh, who is graduated and is now out as a music education student, but he also is a piano major as well as doing a lot of percussion. So here we go.
Mark, we don't see it. We don't see the performance. We just
Okay, sorry, I thought you said that you did. All right.
no. We see you. Or we don't see the.
No,
I'm seeing both the music and the performance.
Yeah, we saw it.
Yeah, me too, and I like
You
it
did.
both ways.
Oh, I don't. Well,
You may have to select, your screens possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm seeing it fine in Bloomington.
oh, now I
Okay.
see it. Yeah.
All right, you see them both now? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. We'll just start it one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you for bearing with the technology here. This is kind of a fun way to do it that Bill suggested, and I think it's going to be great once we get it going here. Well, there you have it.
If I had good legs, I would have wanted to get up and start dancing to that, Mark. That was a terrific piece and just full of vitality and energy and interest and shifts of harmony and you name it, it was in there.
I
Fun,
like,
fun, fun.
I like the way you broke away from the standard, the D minor, and there were sections in there that were quite adventurous and chromatic and really refreshing, but you never lost the folk feel. Really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought there were two bars that sounded slightly, very slightly like Gershwin, so like An American in Dublin or something like that.
Yep, yep.
Dublin or nothing.
Hey, that's even better.
I could have called it that.
Hey, Mark, do you know the music of Harry Partch at all? He's got an instrument that he actually calls the diamond marimba.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's I think there's actually in some cultures that like Eastern European or maybe it seems like I saw somebody that had one of those diamond marimbas
Are they
that
made of bamboo?
no, I think it's just a diamond shape of like the it's more like a xylophone maybe too, but it may
Right,
be
but they,
different than the one that Parch is talking about. There is a diamond shape like xylo where the bars instead of going in a straight line, they kind of go like right, left, kind of like marching percussion or sometimes, has that kind of a layout. But maybe that's different than the diamond marimba that Parch has.
yeah, the only thing I know about it is in a diamond shape, but
Okay.
I'm not sure what the bars are made of on that.
I mean, if it's a marimba, they're probably made out of wood, but the sometimes for certain patterns, rather than just going from right to left, that's you can actually have a more ergonomic thing if you kind of go like right, left, right, every other note. Sort of like a kalimba, is got kind of like part of it, half of a diamond shape in it in a way, and that makes you can go faster like up and down the scale, by alternating from right to left than just going in a straight line. Dulcimer is like that also. So it's kind of maybe modeled after those things. Wonderful. Thank you for all of your feedback. I want to share another piece now with you, and for something completely different here. I don't necessarily have a style. I just kind of like write a piece in one style, then I write a piece in another style, things that I'm interested in. So let me see if I can get all these things to open up properly. Okay. I think it's working. Uh-oh. I just got a colored wheel circling around.
Those are fun.
It scares me. I might have to close Acrobat or something. Let's see what happens.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so you're in a group of composers here. Like when it comes to writing for marimba, like what is one thing that we should do? What is one thing we should not do?
You should write for it. You should not write for it. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, are there any common
More
mistakes that
specific.
composers make that, that like I should avoid?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I did have a situation with, and I made the same mistake myself. I wrote a piece for mallet, but it was unplayable. I had one of my students did the same kind of a thing. She wrote a piece for thinking that one player would do it, and it really worked better as a duet. So if you're going to write for one player, with bass and treble, then you really kind of have to know the techniques and what's doable. There's some flashy things that are actually easy to do, but there's some other things that are just hard to do, even though it may look like it's a watered down piano score. So it's probably like I've never played harp, but it's probably like writing for harp or something like that. You just have to I would recommend like taking a few lessons and play a few of the, look at some of the standard pieces that people play, let's say on a state solo contest list, and then emulate some of the styles and mallet patterns and things like that you see there. And then you'll be like in the mainstream because people are practicing certain exercises. There's a book by Lee Stevens called Method of Movement for Marimba. That's kind of the Bible of marimba. So if you got that book and you looked at those exercises, that would give you some of the patterns that really work great for writing for marimba for 4 mallet. Well, that was 2 mallet, obviously, but those are a few ideas. Okay. All right, I think I've got these things working now. Let's see. This one. I really need Jonathan New like here to run my technology. I'm not as good as he is.
Sorry, I'm just kind of stuck in my car studio currently, or I'd help you out.
We were watching you, or I was, and I hope everyone wasn't, but walking and getting in your car and.
Yeah. I just left. I work at a Starbucks inside of a Kroger, so I just bolted out there in order to get to someplace quiet to be with you guys.
Okay, I think I've got it now.
Hello, Jonah. Jonah, who are you?
Hello, I'm one of Dr. Wooldridge's students.
I see. Nice to have you with us.
Okay, now I'm going to share my desktop and we should be good to go, hopefully. All right, so can you guys see the music there okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to, like in the video, I'm going to explain kind of how the things work. And you can like look at the score and sort of see what I'm saying. You can clap along if you want to at the beginning. That I wrote called the Indian Counterpoint, and this is based on the music of India. Now, in India, they don't have.
We just lost your sound, Mark, talking.
Maybe we can close that door also as people are getting ready to listen to this. But here's how the basic vamp goes. I'll clap it first and then you clap it back. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, you guys can clap along. 1, 2, 3. Good. That's 2/3 of the vamp. Here's the last part. It's very similar. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Try it. Ready, go. Again, ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Let's see if we can put it all together. 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3. And then repeat. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, Excellent. All right, give yourselves a big hand. So throughout the piece, you're going to hear that vamp, and then you're also going to hear lots of rhythms that are going to spin off of the total number of counts, but organize them in different numbers. So at times it'll sound kind of chaotic, but then we'll all come back together again. All right, so we hope you enjoy Indian Counterpoint. All right. Any thoughts, any feedback on the piece? Could you figure out what was going on there? That score is really not writing out every note, obviously, that's there. All I did is write out the vamp, which the audience was practicing at the beginning, and which we hear kind of throughout. The gong was hitting like on the beginning of each 6/4. You can view that as 6 counts per cycle, so to speak, or you can view it as 12 eighth notes or 24 16th notes, however you want to like think of that. But Indian music tends to be just sort of a cycle of counts rather than this idea of weak, strong, weak, strong. You can divide those counts in any way that you want to. So you can take, a total of let's see, 12 counts, and you can divide it into 2, 3, 3, 2, 2. And, or in 3, oh, sorry.
Is Mark, are those patterns an actual tala, like it from an Indian music?
Yeah, I was thinking of it as a tala of like, 12 counts of eighth notes or 24 counts of 16th notes, something like that. Does that make sense?
I love the piece, but I was having a lot of trouble following the score after the first measure. Yeah. But how did the students know when to come in? Because were you cueing them as a conductor, or because I don't see any markings for the different instruments that
Sure.
week?
I'm sorry, I should have pointed it out at the beginning. Performance directions at the bottom. The vamp and the rhythmic variations of the piece may be played on drums or other instruments at the discretion of the performers. Improvisations over the vamp pattern may be added if desired. So this is basically kind of like it has some elements of indeterminacy here, where composers maybe write something and you can play things in any order you want. You can so what I did here, like you've got these rhythms now. There was one section where people were improving, and then that wasn't 100% following this. But every other note was playing like one of those patterns. So like at the beginning, what happened is we'd played the vamp 3 times, and then small sections of the group, one of them played the first line. That 6/4 could be viewed as like 2 6/8. There were different groups that were each playing like segments of that so that everybody got to hear like all 6 patterns in a row.
Hmm.
Then after that, we did some stuff where there was like antiphonal, where it was like one group would play something and then some things would go back and forth. There was one part at the end where it sounded like total chaos. That was a canon. So like some of the groups started, and then like I think it was maybe even halfway through the first pattern, another group came in and started that same thing, and then another group. So that created like a big canon where but we sort of tried to bring out certain parts so that you could hear how it was moving around from one instrument to the next. Like pattern 1 and pattern 4, I think we tried to like bring those out a little bit more, or maybe it was 5, where you could kind of hear them moving through the instruments more, and the other ones were a little bit quieter. And once that everything cannoned all the way through, then we came back into a unison on that last pattern. And then we sped it up, and then everybody just played the full pattern, 1 through the vamp, and then 1 through 6, just like in unison.
Now we have Jonathan and Jonah, I think, playing in that ensemble, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep,
Recognize their
we were
faces.
both there.
So what do you have to say about what you did?
I actually really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun getting to work on this piece. Rehearsing it was definitely complicated with how complex all the different parts were, but it was really a lot of fun to be able to partially improv off of the parts as well in order to just kind of have like a cyclic groove that's different than the normal type of percussive things that we would usually do.
Just watching your faces in the performance, I could tell you guys were having a ton of fun.
Yeah,
Pretty
it was a
good.
lot of fun to perform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy.
I can say I played this piece a lot. As if we played it my freshman year, we played it I think twice my sophomore year, and we played it once last year. And So playing through it, we change lots of things all the time, just trying to make it better. And so we've done lots of variations on how we play, what parts, and how many people are going to start one phrase, and then what phrases do we bring out. And I think part of what I liked about this piece a lot was that we kept changing it sometimes. Sometimes that was a bit frustrating because we would change it from day to day, so it's a bit hard to practice sometimes. But being able to just pull things out, put things in, I thought made this piece really interesting for me because lots of music we play nowadays, it's like, well, it's going to be this exact way, but playing this, we just kind of had fun with it, did what worked, and kept moving it about. It's like I got to play some fun instruments. I think the first time I played this, I played it on a Doonbeck, and then I played it on a cajon. I played it on this cool shaker woodblock thing I picked up one day, and I played it on a handpan. So you kind of just play it on whatever you want to, and I think it made it really interesting.
Nice to have you guys with us.
Very cool. I'm gonna move on for now, but feel free to after the event, even if you want to correspond with me more, if you have more questions about that, be happy to share more information. But we're gonna go to feature Jonathan New now, his piece, and let's see. Okay, I've got the movie for that.
That's a good last name for a modern composer.
I lucked out in that regard.
Let's see. I ran into some technical difficulties before, and I was trying to I just don't have the score loaded here right at this very second, but I think I have it here somewhere. Let me see.
Jonathan, you work at a Starbucks?
Yes, sir, I do.
Wasn't there a Bach Starbucks cantata or something like that?
You're thinking of the coffee cantata, but that was way before Starbucks.
I'm sure I could write some sort of Starbucks ensemble piece if I get inspired enough.
You make it a little chamber opera with a daughter
Yeah.
who's forbidden by her father to do anything until she stops drinking coffee. So
There you go. It's perfect.
yeah, that would be
I
great.
got a movement title for you, though. The movement should be called Molto Espresso.
Oh,
Oh, that's good.
you're on
That's
a
good.
roll. Do you
Okay,
want
then.
one with your coffee?
I'm on a roll because I'm sitting on my buns.
Oh,
Okay, it's going to be in the key
moving
of
right
D.
along.
It's going to be in the key of decaf.
Oh no,
Oh my gosh.
Judith, let's hear a joke from you. Quick, come on.
Stop while we're ahead.
Oh, Judith, we can't hear you. Oh, you're muted. That's why.
I'm
Oh, I heard
muted,
her.
but I'm trying to find my unmute button. I don't know. I'm just enjoying everybody, and this isn't a joke, but Mark, what I love. I mean, I love rhythm. I adore rhythm, but to see you as a teacher, it chokes me up. Passing down the love of improvisation, letting them create and be free without worrying about whether they do it right or wrong. All of that. That just, you grabbed my heart right there. I mean, I didn't think anything would top rhythm, but that does.
Well, yeah, that you're bringing up a really good point because um, one of the things I did want to share was the idea that I started off my career as maybe a lot of people might, being thinking of myself as a performer. And then, of course, you have to get a job. You have to have a day job. So, I ended up teaching at a university, getting a degree, doing that so I could support my habit of, being a performer. But then I took a sabbatical and performed of all places, Indiana Wesleyan and some other places. And when I went back to my previous school, I all of a sudden I realized that I love teaching and that I just really missed having a whole year where I just performed and I wasn't interacting with students. And so my focus has just gradually moved more and more towards my teaching rather than my performing. I mean, I still do perform and I want to perform, but I want to perform with my students and get them involved in it. So I'm trying to share the love of performing and composing with other people now, as much as I'm not always sometimes I enjoy it more when I'm just conducting and just hearing them do the performing. I don't want to step in and take the good part, away from them. So um, sometimes I'll just have more of a nondescript part in the group, but I can sort of like lead from that. So that's going to be, this is an example of that. Rather than writing my own piece, I had an idea that the handpan would sound really cool as a featured instrument. And I wrote a grant that, enabled us to get that and then also turn it over to our music therapy department after the performance was over. So it's really been a blessing. And I, rather than write it myself, I commissioned a student, Jonathan New, to write it. Do you want to just say a little bit about it, Jonathan?
Yeah, sure. So like Dr. Wooldridge said, he approached me towards the end of my junior year. He's like, "Hey, we got this cool new grant for a handpan, and I think it'd be really cool if we wrote a concerto for it to show it off and like show people what it can do." So the piece is titled Healing for a Broken World. It is a handpan and percussion ensemble concerto. The handpan, kind of like Dr. Wooldridge mentioned earlier, is a very new instrument. It was only invented in 2008, so weirdly, even within my lifetime, it's that young. So there really hasn't been a lot of super serious repertoire written for it. Pretty much the only people that have used it are kind of like forest hippies who go off and do their own thing off in the woods. It has a lot of like deep meditative qualities. It has this really dark, nice, rich timbre to it. Um, but there hasn't actually been a lot of actual professional music written for it. So I wrote this piece to showcase a couple of the different things that the handpan can do. I showed off its fast rhythmic capability, its ability to act like a more traditional drum, as well as its ability to support other instruments and showcase some of the more music therapy relaxation side of the instrument as well.
Cool. I'm going to try to share this now, and I may have I minimized the screen, and now I'm trying to figure out how to share. Let's see.
This is a minimalist piece.
Yeah.
David, don't say anything, please. Or Greg, neither of you.
I don't know what I did here. How do
I was in Houghton and loved the piece.
Thank you. I know some of
Yes.
you have heard this before at Houghton University, was where it was debuted.
Yes, we did.
this
That was the
came,
premiere.
this performance was later, and I feel like we got even better on it. So, but
I agree.
if I can figure out how to get this to come up now, because I minimized my Zoom screen, and now I can't figure out how to get back to it so I can share my screen. Let's see. I don't know if anyone knows how to do that. Let's see. Oh, wait, maybe I'll click on Jonathan and see what happens. Okay, there we go. I found it. Okay, and now I'll go back to my desktop. And let's see. So can you see like a performance and then also a score there?
Yes, although the score is really small.
Do you want me to make it bigger and just like one page per?
Yeah, could you make
One
it
page per
one
screen would
page?
be better. Yeah,
Okay.
Although that'll be a lot of page turning.
Yeah.
that's good. That's good.
Okay. All right. And then this one is not queued up exactly correct. So it turned out I didn't have a great, I couldn't find like the video right where it starts. So
Could you make the performance video a little larger? Just
yeah,
a bit.
hang on.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's going in slow motion, so there's like a problem with this film, I can see. What I'm going to try to do is just bring it up on YouTube, because I think I know I have like a good version of it on YouTube. Hold on just a second here. If you guys want to ask some other questions from my students, I'll be right back.
How do you students like working with Professor Wooldridge?
I honestly love it. He's shown me a lot of stuff. just not only about music but about life, which has been really nice getting to work with him. He also has pushed me a lot as a composer. The piece that you're about to hear, the handpan concerto, I brought him the first draft of it over the summer, and he told me that it was nowhere near hard enough and needed a bunch more stuff put into it. So he really pushed me to grow a lot more and not just kind of settle for mediocrity or just getting by, but to actually really push myself to see what I could do. Um, Honestly, working with Dr. Wooldridge, he was really one of my favorite professors when I was a student at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Jonah, can you top that comment that Jonathan made?
I can say that the time I've been here, Dr. Wood has been super gracious with me about lots of things because I was like, I'm not exactly the best at getting to theory class all the time, but he always works me through it. And I thought that was wonderful because he's just always willing to work with me with what I needed. And he taught me so much. I was like, he taught me how to play four mount marimba. I was like, I learned it at the marimba camp over the summer, and then I came to school the next semester and was just kicking right into it. And so lots of what I have done at the school has been purely through learning from Wooldridge. And I was like, it's always just been something where I felt like whenever I needed to grow somewhere, I could go ask him, like, hey, I'm struggling with this part right here. I need help. I don't quite get how to do this. Or, hey, I was like, I'm struggling with this piece of work. Can you come help me with this? Or when I was struggling to pass my qualifications to get into the upper level program, Wooldridge was one of the people who championed for me and helped me figure things out. And so he's just been a very key component of my entire school career so far. And so it's been wonderful to be with him.
All right, I think I've got it now. Let me know if there's any issues, but I'll just this is actually the piece is quite long, so I'm gonna play like the shorter version. Is that okay, Jonathan? Sorry
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
that's totally okay.
All right.
The second half of the piece, so the entire piece is sort of in a palindrome form. So it starts with one idea, goes into a different development section in the middle, and then it returns to the original idea more towards the end. So with the short version, you're basically still getting the gist of what all the different sections of the piece actually consist of.
All right, so here we go. That's a short version there. There's another short section after that, and then all of that stuff repeats. So I apologize. So what are your thoughts or feedback on their questions that you have on this one?
It's very evocative. It's very
I think
pretty.
it's really fascinating instrument and seeing the notation and that's basically all by hand, right? The
Yes.
notes.
Yeah, I used a notation program, MuseScore, to write this all down, but I had to go in and, write all the different passages for all the different instruments.
It was what I'm talking about, the hand, the the solo instrument. That that's to learn to play that would be kind of on the tricky side, I would think.
I say, Jonah, who's in the call with us, was our handpan soloist for that. He can tell you he had to spend a long time practicing this piece to get it up to speed properly.
Yeah, so the way we went about it was we bought the handpan at the end of the year, and we gave it to Jonathan over the summer to write the piece. And so I didn't see the handpan until the last weekend of August. Um, and I was given the handpan, and so the first thing I did was I went to the practice rooms and I just sat down and started playing away, trying to get used to playing the handpan. I didn't have the music yet; I just had the handpan itself, and so I was just practicing, finding out what I could do with the handpan and getting my hands ready to do stuff. And then it was like the next weekend I was given the piece, and would sit down with it for hours. I'd sit there and try to work out how to do what was written there. It's like there was that one very scalar section where the marimbas did it, and then the vibraphones did it, and then I did it. And that section is by far one of the hardest things I've ever performed. It took a lot of mechanics in my hands that I've never used before, and so practicing that section took me ages. And I would sit there, sometimes just out in the lobby of our music building. I would sit next to Jonathan. We just sit there, and I would just hammer away at it, trying to learn it. Because I think we played it for the first time maybe a month and a half after I got the piece for the first time, and there weren't really good learning sources for the handpan because no one's really trying to teach how to do fancy stuff on the handpan. It's just here's how you hit it. If you hit it this way, it makes this sound, and that's all you really get when you're looking online. So there's a lot of trial and error, and just getting input from Dr. Wooldridge about what he thought I could do and trying to make it all work.
Could I ask
Okay.
a kind of dumb question? Which would be harder, playing, let's say, I think I know the answer, 50 measures in 7/8 time with a complex, I can't say the word complexities of the music, or every measure or two changing time signatures? Which would be harder to, is the steady uh, measure rhythm help keep it in order?
So the B section is the one where you change meters a lot, and on that section, it wasn't terribly difficult after I found the right technique for it. When I was first trying it, I was trying all kinds of different ways to play it, and that it wasn't working. And then Dr. Wooldridge made a suggestion to me about using my thumbs to create the accents, and then using the rest of my fingers to play the unaccented parts of it. And as soon as I started doing that, I was able to incorporate a style of motion that just made it really easy to switch between 7 and 5 and 3. And so as soon as I got the technique in, playing the actual part throughout the B section was really easy, and it's one of my favorite parts to play. Whereas at D, which is that really fast scalar part going on, it's in the same meter for almost the entire time, but it's moving so fast back and forth that sometimes my hands just couldn't quite keep up anymore. And so there are some performances where I was like, I have to stop in the middle. And I just have to like reset myself because I was like, my wrist just didn't move quite right. And as soon as one thing goes off in that section, it's all wash. I have to just try it again because that section is so tightly packed.
So the thing with the thumb and the other finger, that also sounds like, I'm not an authority on Indian music, but it sounds like a tabla kind of a thing.
Yeah, I was like, that's probably where it came from, because I was practicing I was using a different method, and Dr. Wooldridge suggested it. And as soon as he did, I was like, that makes sense, because I've used that same style of technique on various kinds of roll drums where I used, or use a thumb or just a heavier part of your hand to create the accent. And so as soon as he suggested it, I was able to implement it right away because it's something I was familiar with, but wasn't something I thought about putting in.
Okay, now comparing this to steel drums or pans, do you have more actual notes possible on this than a large steel drum?
So,
It depends a little bit. Some of them, yes, some of them, no. The hand pans come in different sizes and like they're built off different scales, kind of
Yeah,
like
okay, all
steel
right.
drums are. So it's like so the one that we used, which I found was the most common one, is it's this interesting scale. It's called a D Kurd scale. So it's a D natural minor scale, but it starts with an open fifth from D to A, and then
Hmm.
it's A to A, but with a B flat, which is why that's why I pitched this piece in the key that it is, because that was essentially the only thing that I could do with the handpan itself.
Okay, now, just an idea for something for you to write, or anybody to write. Something, because I've done things. In fact, I had something played once by a steel drum band. Um, Doing something like it, maybe a concerto for this, and steel drums, with or without the mallets. Mallets meaning marimba, etc.
Yeah, the thing about that is that this is like a steel drum flipped upside down. So
Okay,
that
yeah.
gives you a better surface to hit, the rather than it curved like in, it's curved on
Uh-huh.
top, it's rounded over, so you can hit little mounds. So actually the people that originally did this, I mean, you can literally just make a steel drum if you can imagine that, and then just cut it away and then flip it over. They just sort of make a turtle shape. They
Okay.
probably, I'm assuming they beat it from underneath, and then when it's ready, then they just put it on top of like one that's just a resonating box essentially,
Mm.
that's the same kind of shape. So it is very much like steel drum, but I don't think it would work to do that on the steel drum, because when you're pounding that way, it's kind of like pounding into the thing, and it will actually change the pitch.
Yeah. No,
And
I wouldn't say that. I mean, just an idea for a piece with this, with a steel drum, background accompaniment.
oh, okay, steel drum, yeah, because we have steel drums also, so
Yeah.
that would be a cool idea to
Yeah,
do
so
that.
you can assign that to somebody.
All right, Jonah.
Hayden, you should get to work right on that.
Jonathan and Jonah, I greatly enjoyed hearing this a second time, even in its abbreviated form. Jonathan, I liked how you brought in from the other mallet instruments a new tonality partway through to give a slight break from the fundamental key. Um, Jonah, at the risk of being barred permanently from the CFAMC listening room, may I suggest that the performers on this instrument be called hand pandlers?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I
Can I
think
ask
that
a
there could be some very
I
viral
promise that's the last
in
one
this
for this.
session here that I might see on Reels or TikTok.
can I ask a question here, guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Um, I've had an experience with actually somebody gave me a hand drum. It was made from a propane tank, and he put it in the key that I wanted it in for a piece that I was using. But the problem was the person who played that part had never played one before. So how do you hand this to somebody who's never played one before and they can figure out what the notes are? And how long did it take you to learn what the notes and pitches were when you wrote it down in pitches? Does
So
that make
for
sense?
Yeah, for me, learning it, our hand fan came with this little diagram on the underside of it that just
Right.
showed it's like the big one's D, and then you got A, and then they alternate side to side going up. And so finding it that way, it took me a while to get used to it because it didn't quite make sense to me at first. I was like, where are my notes? Where are my notes?
Yeah.
Um, but I picked it up pretty fast, and I had minor experience on the handpan before. That's like when we listened to Indian Counterpoint. We actually one of our performances of that we got to keep the handpan for a weekend, and so that was the weekend of our percussion ensemble concert. And so then I was tossed into the handpan for Indian Counterpoint, and they gave me a little solo in the middle of it just to show off the handpan because you're trying to convince the people that we should buy it. And so I had a little bit of experience on it, but not much. And just discovering how to play it can be really hard. I think the more experience you have with hand style drums, the easier it is. Um, However, that being said, I can't think of another hand drum that translates perfectly to it because there's lots of motions going between notes that just don't quite apply anywhere else. For at least that I've played. There might be some other drums that I haven't touched, but with most drums being that kind of style, introducing that curved dome to it opens up a lot of opportunities that just I wasn't used to being ready for, and so it made it quite hard to learn. But I think the more experience you have with world drums, the easier it is. Um, but then it's just lots of practicing and experimenting and just seeing what you think will work, and then just having people kind of goof off on it until they figure it out.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this
Great
is,
job.
we were talking about the diamond marimba before. This is almost a similar kind of a thing where you're going back and forth, up the scale. You're alternating with your hands. You can go faster that way than having to do everything like in a line. So, and it's just more ergonomic. So, um, it's interesting that this piece kind of has that same idea as the dulcimer. Also, you go back and forth with a hammer dulcimer. So it's kind of that sort of approach. So I want to introduce like one of my other composition students now, Caden Burns, and we're going to hear a piece that he wrote. I mean, the way this came about is Caden came in and kind of tested out a lot of music theory just right off the bat, and just immediately as a freshman became like my student assistant in the theory area. Um, so what we just talk about theory and composition, things like that a lot. One day he just came in. Well, first of all, he joined the percussion ensemble because I just wanted to have him involved in everything I'm doing because I like hanging out with him. And then one day he just came in and said that he had written a piece for percussion ensemble. And so I'll just turn it over to Cade and just explain like what he did and why he did it. But I just said, hey, let's perform it second semester. So, we did it his second semester of his freshman year. So, Caden Burns, take it over.
Yeah, so before college, I have had no experience with percussion. So beforehand, it was always orchestra. I play violin. So when I came to college, and Wooldridge was like, "Hey, you should join percussion," and I was like, "Oh, sure, cool. I'm a composition major. I need to learn how these things work and how they're played, and it seems fun." So I joined, and I had fun the first month or so. Or I had fun the entirety of the percussion, but like especially that first month, I was like, "This is really cool," and so I started writing a piece for kind of like a small ensemble of marimbas plus vibraphone with some musical ideas that I had written, and then I had to put it off for some time. And then finally one day I was just like, I just need to finish this. So I had to like sit down and just write the rest of it. And so I told Wooldridge and I was like, hey, I haven't finished. And he was like, cool. And so what I didn't know at the time is that we were going to play it at our second semester concert and have an animation written for it, which was really cool. So um, yeah. The main theme of it uses an octatonic scale, and what's really nice about that is that it's perfectly symmetrical, so you can have some really cool like harmonies up minor thirds and lower minor thirds and stuff. It all just fits together and sounds dark, I'll say. I don't know. But yeah, that's my piece.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try something here. We're gonna listen to it twice, and this maybe we'll probably just end with this piece today, which is fine. Um, because the other one that I was going to share is just kind of a similar thing with an animation, or maybe that can be an extra for people that want to stay just for another like 5 more minutes at the end. But um, when Caden wrote
Let's
this,
have that extra. Yes,
yeah, when
I
Caden
vote
wrote
for
this,
extra. Yeah. Okay.
when Caden wrote this, he just called it Adventure of the Marching Ants before he ever even knew that it was that I was going to say, hey, let's have the art department create an animated film for this because that's one of the projects that I've been involved in with Serendipity Percussion is the idea of like collaborating with the art department. And last year we did like a few animated films, and this year they said they wanted to do 4 animated films. So, but we're doing it in the opposite manner than what it's normally done. What we're doing is writing the music first, and then the animators are creating the film rather than the other way around. So it's totally the opposite. But a lot of times and the animators were all students. But a lot of times what'll happen is the animator will look at the title, and if they come up with an idea that matches the title, then they'll go with it. But if for some reason they hear something else, and they have the option of just going in a different direction if they want to. So, I try not to tell them anything. I might have my own ideas. Well, here's how I would animate it, but I try not to say anything to them. Just give the music to the students, let them discuss it, create a storyboard. And they created something called a animatic, which is, it's kind of like a prequel to an animation where they'll do panels. So they'll create like one picture that kind of represents a whole scene. And then they just give it a little bit of motion with kind of a Ken Burns like effect where the camera just pans from one side to the other with it or something like that. But sort of more like, a series of paintings, kind of like pictures at an exhibition kind of a thing, where you see like these different panels that last maybe 2 or 3 seconds each that are kind of telling a story. But what we're going to try the first time is just listen to the music only, and you can watch the score and just kind of vision in your mind what you think that you might do if you were the animator and you were being asked to create an animation on in any manner, what would you do with this music? Okay, so I'm gonna hit play, but then I'm gonna cover up the actual film. If you're actually seeing the film, let me know, and I'll try to like stop that because I want to just hear it the first time. So here we go, The Adventure of the Marching Ants. So, just I'm curious, like if you were going to like set that as an animated film, like what would the storyboard be? What would the script be? You know, you can make other comments too about the piece.
The ants go to a picnic.
Okay.
I heard a little bit more of a circus in there myself. I heard some parts that were like acrobats flying through the air, or another some sections that a little bit sadder, like a sad clown, or I don't know. I just had sort of a carnival
Mhm.
feeling to me a lot, but I enjoyed the piece a lot.
That's fair, yeah. When I didn't write this piece with a title in mind,
Well, let them
so
give a few more comments, Kaden. Is that
yeah.
okay before you jump in? Because this is really great for us to hear what the piece could have been, and maybe it still could be too if somebody wants to set it differently. Any other thoughts on what you heard?
Yeah, I saw a ballet, with them dressed in little pink tutus and the stiff skirts going out and doing all kinds of things with their ant legs and their big,
Mhm.
paws, dancing around. Da, 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 da.
Some of these ideas I think you're going to see in the actual film too. Any other
It would be
thoughts?
almost thinking of children ballet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but then you might want to change the title, which is always a possibility. How how immersed in ant is this piece?
These are great questions. Anyone else really want to jump in and try to like guess?
But you'd have back in the dark ages when I was a kid during World War II, and so I organized our kids. We would march around, in the neighborhood. We were going to be soldiers. There were some sections of that made me think of that experience.
Hmm. It's a very pretty piece.
Well, I think you guys like hit on some of the same ideas that our animators hit on. So I'm going to just show it to you without any further explanation.
Can I say one tiny thing, totally unrelated?
Yeah, go ahead.
Courtesy accidentals where you have a C sharp, but then to put a C natural in the next bar. Just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's all.
Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Have the March of the Courtesy Accidentals, whatever.
mm-hmm. That's actually that's a really great point that you just brought up there. I really appreciate our new professor that we have now this year, Nick Sokol. I think Caden, has he already graduated or is he like a student at Butler right now or is he still working
I
on
just know he has his master's in
from Butler?
position. I don't.
Yeah, I think he might be working on a doctoral degree. I'm not positive, but he's really a phenomenal teacher, in my opinion. But one of the things that he really emphasizes that I really appreciate is like the score has to match, like the score has to be like really well.
Yeah.
So one of the
So,
things that happened both with Jonathan's piece, I mean, I was noticing even on Jonathan's score, we added like a Doombeck in there, and I don't see that in that score. So Jonathan, if you're still here,
The score you have is actually a very outdated version. I realized that right away. I've made many, many revisions to it. So
okay,
that's
fair
actually a
enough.
very outdated score.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just grabbed something that I had, from back in the day. Caden's is probably more updated, but we did make Caden and I met and we went over the score coincidentally, like very, very detailed, which I'm glad because he ended up using it as his jury piece at the end of the semester, and he would have been like, slammed if it wasn't, because the thing that tends to happen when my students collaborate with me on these things is we change like everything or we make a lot of changes, and God bless them, they're willing to like receive, suggestions and things. I mean, I had a composer once, Russell Peterson, his name is, at Concordia, and he wrote a piece, a concerto for me, and he said, "Hey, if there's anything you don't like, just change it," change it to something that you do like, and I appreciate the flexibility when a composer like collaborates with someone, especially if it's not what they're writing for normally, to allow the performer to say, hey, how about this suggestion, and Jonathan and Caden were both real open. But one of the things we did, which relates to a question from earlier too, is like things to avoid or things to know about with marimba is especially you don't have a sustain really on a marimba, so like rolls is something that you can use to sustain a note. Doesn't sound exactly like a sustain tone. Now the vibraphone, of course, really does, but there were just a few things maybe in Caden's piece where we did add a roll, and I see that it's not on there, but it doesn't mean that you have to every time that you have a longer note. Sometimes it sounds better just struck. Sometimes it sounds better with a roll on it. So a lot of times the performers make those adjustments really, and you can even change the score that you get. But the more that the composer can do it for you and make like wise decisions, then the performer will probably respect that, and you can kind of get a best performance out of it. So let's go ahead now, and we're gonna let's not even look at the score this time around. We're just gonna look at the let's just look at the music and the film. Because this is something that I just absolutely love doing, is take a piece of music, whether it's written by a student or it's just something that we find that we wanted to play anyways, and then have the art department create a film. So here's their version of The Adventure of the Marching Ants.
That answered my question. How many artists it made it? It's four. Mhm.
So what are your thoughts about it? Did it surprise you what they did? Um, when I first saw it, I mean, there was a magical moment. Literally, I think I got this film like the day before we performed it, or something like that. The day before our first rehearsal, so maybe like 2 days before, because everything was down to the wire. With the students. And they were working really hard and everything. And it was just like kind of a magical moment when they made a mock-up of the film with one of our rehearsal recordings, and it was like, wow. But what are your guys' thoughts? Did it surprise you? I had some questions about it. Maybe you have even questions. I think I may know the answers to some of them, but what are your thoughts?
Especially if you haven't spoken. Exactly. Caden, I'm not sure Caden has even seen the film with this piece. Have you seen it?
I had only seen the first minute of it, actually. So that technically was the first time I saw that film all the way through.
So what were your
Um,
thoughts, Caden? Because Caden was playing the vibraphone solo part, so he was like facing away from it the whole time. And I literally just got the film like 2 days ago from the video person. And so this is like the first time that this is being shown. So tell us, Caden, thoughts.
um, I what really interests me, the posters that were posted around IWU had a picture of like lightning bugs and everything. And when I saw that picture, I was like, "Hey, that's cool. That was the photo they had on the poster." Um, I like the whole film. Um, there was one poster missing. It was one of the lightning strike. If you were wondering why that third moth fell from the sky, but that was the only poster that was missing now. But um, I just like the creativity that they put behind it because they're basically given this audio, this piece of music, and then they're like, oh, go ahead and write a story of this, whatever you feel like it sounds like. And so just hearing some of you say like, oh, it sounds like a ballet and like a children and and a little bit of marching and especially in that like firefly section and that waltz and seeing like the dancing and then the like almost like childlike movements and stuff. I was like, that's exactly what you guys were talking about. It sounds like there, and so it makes me really happy.
I didn't see many ants in it, but I think that they did an effective job with it. There was a couple of times that it was pretty stereotypical. For instance, there were moments of when they were showing people in danger where they were doing that to diminish triads and seventh chords. I don't know if you noticed that, but that
Yeah,
struck me right away.
yeah.
Well,
And
that just shows the musical sensitivity of our art students. A lot of them really have a good sense for music as well.
and it makes you realize part of the pictures of that a myth is just a female moth. But
But I think the whole idea of family, community, and you know, difficulties and finally coming through and back together in great community. I mean that's really kind of uplifting sense for what they were portraying, which fits the music very nicely.
when you were children, anybody here, because everyone here was a child, did you ever in art class or maybe music class, the teacher would give out paper and crayons and say, draw a picture of what this music sounds like to you? That's, did you experience that yourself when you were a kid? guess not.
I think I did that at some point back in the dark ages.
I think sometimes in a music appreciation
Although when I
class.
was a kid, I'm not sure they had invented crayons yet. I can't remember for sure.
I remember one time we were, I don't know, fourth grade or something. We were supposed to write down our impressions of something, and it was supposed to be like, "Oh, I see ants marching, or I see that," and I said something about because we're listening to a piece of music, and I got flunked because I said I think the second clarinet was out of tune, and that wasn't the kind of answer the teacher wanted.
The music could have even, do you think it would sound like unhatched chicks? Probably not.
There could have been a couple of places like that you could have tied in some of the Victor Hartmann artwork of Mussorgsky's that inspired Mussorgsky.
I mean,
And
one of the things I
David's
was,
main piece of music is pictures in exhibition, right, David?
Well, it's the one that I collect every recording and get my hands on. I have about 2,000 of them at the moment in about 800 arrangements. So, but I mean, it was a very innovative piece for its day and sort of launched a whole lot of other copycat pieces involving art and things of that sort. So I think it was a very influential work.
one of the things that surprised me when I first saw it is like, it's like, okay, wait a minute, there's no ants in here. I just didn't quite get what they were thinking. I said, should we change the name, to this, like just adventure, just call it adventure or something like that. And then he kept coming back to me and saying, no, the students say they want it to be called Adventure of the Marching Ants. That's what they want it to be called. They want to stay with that title. That's the way they conceived it, and they want that title on there. So I left the title on there, for it. With some of the other ones, what we've done is like we did something based on this piece was called Tuscany that this composer wrote, but it had kind of a lot of jungle sounding drums and the students wrote a piece called their animation was called They Are the Poached, and it was about poaching and the drumming, the jungle drumming and stuff was like kind of a setting behind a lot of the scenes of these people going to like poach animals and stuff. So we just called the piece They Are the Poached rather than Tuscany. But in this case, they wanted to call the piece as a whole, their March of Adventure of the Marching Ants. So what I've come to understand is I think they were viewing those people were like little people, the size of ants, and they were just viewing them as like kind of like the quote ant people or the small little people. So which is really interesting because a lot of you said, that you thought about children and, so they probably had that same feeling. Well, how can we do that? Well, let's just make them tiny and we'll call them the quote, ants. So I think they did a really cool job of incorporating all the ideas in that. Well, excellent. I mean, if you guys want to just have another 5 minute, blessing, um, if if you would like to, I can ask Bill if that's okay. I do have another animated film that they did that's about 5 minutes long called Starfall, and this one was just to music that we just chose on our own. It wasn't something that we composed or anything, but it's a beautiful piece, and they created a storyboard for it, and it's very uplifting and maybe a nice way to end. What do you think, Bill? Do we have time for that?
Yes, amen.
Okay.
Preach it, brother.
Let me just pull that up, and it's about a 5 minute piece. It's called Starfall. And I think again they did a beautiful job with the story, just going with the title and created something to go along with it that's thought provoking. Okay, just give me a second to pull that one up. Okay, and share this.
Oh, that was nice.
Yep, I love that again. Another magical moment when they sent that to me, and I just heard, I saw that film, along with a pre-recorded version that they had, but we get to do it, ourselves live. Just very magical. Um, this is something that I really believe in is classical music with film. Um, Kind of like a non-narrative film, I like to think of it as. No lyrics, no dialogue or anything. It's just the music and the film. And the film it could be animation, it could be acting, pantomime of some sort, like the red balloon, that was like something that was very inspiring to me, is just like a kid wandering around Paris, chasing after a balloon with music behind it. This is also like Koyaanisqatsi, is another movie that Philip Glass wrote the music for that. It's just images of creation and different cultures and things like that with music, but no dialogue really. So this is something that I've just kind of decided is going to become like my thing now, as I am like towards the end of my career, maybe, as a percussionist. But this is something I really want to focus on now and present this. But I'd just be interested in your feedback on this whole venture.
Back when I was performing, I used to always do that. I mean, we even had an overhead projector, and you put a bowl of water, and then you put drops of food coloring in, and then they change and morph behind the music.
Hmm.
Then you can add a dancer. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's a multimedia thing. And I love this direction that you're going, and I love the fact that you're inspiring this next generation to pick it up and keep going forward, because this next generation is a lot more visual now. Um, I mean, that seems to be how they're relating a lot more than they are just reading a book or a sheet of music. So, bravo. I mean, that was amazing, by the way.
Thanks for sharing, Mark. I really appreciated it.
Mark, I have just a quick question, and I know that we're running out of time. This has to do with teaching percussion students. What do you think about the first instrument that a 6 or 7 or 8 year old starts to learn being a snare drum or something like that's not melodic, and they learn rhythm first
Hmm.
before they have to deal with melody and harmony? I mean, you know, some students, a 7 year old that start with a violin and they never get past the squeaky stage and they quit. Or they learn the trumpet. They can't provide an embouchure that's good enough to have a clear tone, so they quit. What do you think about them starting with like a snare drum, one that doesn't, a percussion instrument that doesn't have melody, and just concentrate on learning rhythm first and getting that rhythm technique down? And then the other instruments will come easier because they've learned the rhythm technique. I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter to you one way or the other, but it's just been a thought that I've had over the last hour.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that, to be honest, that's the way that it usually does go. Students, maybe when I was in fifth grade, I just signed up for percussion because I wanted to play drum set, and I thought that looks really cool to me. And they just started me on snare, and a lot of people, that's what happens. They get into snare, and they're really good at rhythm type things. Then you put like notes on a page in front of them, and they just freak out and avoid, and they because they can do rhythm so well, and then it's all of a sudden it's hard. The one advantage that I had is I started piano at age 5, so I think that that's the ultimate really, is to have, you can have drumming at a young age, but I think piano is like really critical. I'd almost start somebody from out percussion, I'd almost start them on piano and get them to a certain level first, then they can just go to the instrument and play and get off the page in a way, because they already know the keyboard, they already know the notes, and hopefully they can start to like memorize things. because you really have to memorize. Even though we were reading music there, you have to kind of memorize a lot of it because you have to look down. And the notes, it's even harder than it is on piano. You have to kind of look down because the notes are all different sizes and widths, and and you have to kind of see, like, to hit the correct notes, you have to kind of look a lot more even than you do like with a piano. So it is a challenge to get people going on a mallet instrument. But I'd also say that I've had some students, I had a student that won like an international competition on snare drum, but when he came in, he hadn't done a lot of marimba. And so he mostly focused with me on mallet percussion, as in terms of being a college student, became, if you have good hands, you can be a phenomenal marimba player. So there's no question that having those snare drum skills, I did it kind of in reverse because I already had piano and I always marimba came easier to me than snare drum. So I did it in reverse, but I think it can work either way. But I like the way that you're thinking about that.
Well,
Mark,
not
sorry.
that's it. Didn't Kodai, his approach was something like that, but different. He would have them singing and reading first, so they knew how to read music, and hopefully had some idea about rhythms before they had to figure out which button to push down on a trumpet or
Hmm.
fingerings on a clarinet or what have you.
Something that strikes me very much about Mark, it's not a musical thing, but it certainly is what it means to be a Christian thing. Mark has a great uh, desire to help other people. And I want to show you, the other day I was in a restaurant and there was a guy wearing a t-shirt. And so I went over and I said, could I take a photograph of you with that t-shirt on? And I'm going to share right now that picture. Can you see that picture? Can anyone see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So it says live generously. And that made me think of Mark, because I'd just been talking to him the day before, and he's someone who lives generously, as that shirt says. We all need to live generously, and I think we all do. But Mark particularly, it's very noticeable. You're giving yourself, you're being generous, giving yourself for other people. And that's really living.
Mark, the other thing I was going to say about you as a teacher that I particularly admire is that you encourage your students have come to study with you for percussion, but you encourage them to write music. And the reason I think that's such a good idea is that writing music, there's no better way to get inside a piece of music than to write music. And so a performer needs to be able to get inside the piece and not just play it superficially or externally. But I think writing it will help you delve into the actual, whatever piece of music you might be performing. It gives you a different mindset. And also, I think the way you perform your students' music is also a marvelous teaching tool. I don't know of any better way for a younger composer to learn how to write music than to write something and then hear it performed. That to me is the best way to teach music
Mhm.
or to teach composition.
Hmm.
So those are my two particularly things that I admire in what I see you doing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's really interesting because I have like a couple of different groups. Um, I had like two different. One thing I learned is I'm going to have like two different percussion ensembles, two smaller groups, and we do some stuff all together. But the groups you were seeing were, one of them was the all together group, but there was a couple of them were the smaller group, and that particular group that has Caden in it is almost all composers,
Mm,
and almost all
wow.
of them are not percussion majors.
Mm.
I mean, they literally just had two mallets put in their hand and then started learning like on day one of in the fall maybe or maybe the previous fall, and they wanted to compose for percussion. I said, well, the best way to do it then is join percussion ensemble. So we made a percussion ensemble that was pretty much all composers, and that's been just a super blessing. And it turns out that they're great performers too. Once they learn the skills and they have the vision for what the music is about, they really care about making the music sound. And it's really just been incredible. A lot of them also, if any piano player really should take marimba, because you can literally just put two mallets in your hand. You don't have to worry about getting a squeaky sound on a violin. You just hit one note and it sounds great right from the beginning. So a piano player can very quickly become, at a very proficient level on marimba, and why not?
Well, I think we've. If someone else has something to say, please say it. If not, then I think this would probably be a good time to end.
Can I just give a quote, that I have for the end?
Yes. Oh, yes, please.
I just have one of the projects that I'm looking to do next is something relating to C.S. Lewis. And so I've been reading a lot of his quotes, about things that he has stated about music and about art. But this quote is more like from a book, but it kind of is making a statement about art, and especially, the art that kind of like dreams of the world, as it could be, or maybe just like the marching ants, maybe is a picture of the world as it actually is, but just kind of, told through a parable, like what Jesus would do. But here's a quote that comes from the book, The Silver Chair. And C.S. Lewis wrote, suppose we only have dreamed up and made up these things like sun, sky, stars, and moon, and Aslan himself. In that case, it seems to me that the made up things are a good deal better than the real ones. And if this black pits of a kingdom is the best you can make, then it's a poor world. And if we four can make a dream world to lick, we four can make a dream world to lick the real one hollow. So it just kind of shows the power of, we all want to change the world, but sometimes if we just present a different world to a listener, they will take that to heart and then want to change the world around it to kind of make it conform to that dream vision.
Well, that's a good way to end.
Okay, just a little advice to Jonathan. When you do your Starbucks cantata, make sure to get the coffee righted.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do any pun about the word grind. Okay.
These are great suggestions. I need to be writing these all down.
Yes, do you have a can of spray paint?
I'm sure I can find one lying around somewhere.
Well, I was going to write a coffee piece, but I got arrested for double perking. So,
Oh. And as we all know, the children of Israel, the type of coffee they drank, they never drank regular coffee because they worshiped decaf.
Oh.
I kid you not, when I was
amen.
When I was younger than Caden and Jonathan, I wrote a piece called I don't remember the combination. It's discarded by now, but it was called Grounds for Divorce. And so that was my coffee piece, I guess. Somebody who didn't want to drink the stuff, which is basically me.
Interesting choice for a title, but I dig it.
We could conclude
I'm a
with
teetotaler.
We could conclude with a few "Why did a chicken cross the road" jokes now.
To prove to the opossum that it could be done.
Why did a chicken cross the road halfway? She wanted to lay it on the law. Excuse me. Well, she wanted to lay it on the line.
Sorry, folks, I'm going to have to leave, but I really appreciate this. It's a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
We've chased a few away. I think I better leave too before I get cut off. I've actually got to return a phone call to somebody who tried to call me twice. So I'll bid you all adieu too until next month.
Thank you all
Yeah,
for coming.
thank you
Thank you for
very
having
much,
me.
Mark. You did a wonderful job. Keep up the good work.
You too,
And your
Bill.
students also.
Bye.
Bye.